Bilgewater Bob did not see himself as a pirate first and a plumber second. If anybody asked, he would insist, "I'm a tradesman with an eye for opportunity on the high seas." The lines blurred, of course. He carried a cutlass for clearing clogged cannon muzzles, and his parrot Squeegee could swear like a deckhand and recite the standard rates for emergency pipe repairs. But Bob's real passion was simple: keeping water where it was meant to be. It was therefore unfortunate that his newest client, Captain Grimchops of the brigantine Curse of the Tides, needed water kept out rather than in. The job arrived the usual way, jammed into the bunghole of an empty rum barrel. Bob uncorked the barrel, expecting stale fumes, and instead found a sealed letter dripping seawater. The ink was smudged, but the gist was clear. "Ship sinking. Have leaks aplenty. Bring your cleverest ironwork. Payment, untold riches." Bob liked two things about that: leaks and payment. Untold riches often turned out to be very specific disappointments, but a leak never lied. 3 days later, he rowed his patch dinghy up to the Curse of the Tides. The brigantine listed like a drunkard attempting sobriety, upright for a moment, then sloshing sideways as though the ocean were whispering wicked ideas. From the scupper holes, water poured in thin, silver tongues. Even without stepping aboard, Bob could identify at least 5 structural ailments: cracked hull planks, a dislocated garboard strake, and a suspicious gurgle he recognized as the last gasp before total submergence. Captain Grimchops greeted him on the gangway, wearing a feathered hat that might once have been crimson but was now a vague, soppy mauve. "Ye be Bob?" "Aye," Bob said, hefting his toolbox. "I answered a bilgewater bobby of the pipes or magician of the main drain. You have a leak." "Leaks?" Grimchops corrected, then under his breath, "and a crew thick as tar who think caulk is a swear word." Bob stepped aboard, and the deck groaned like a patient in despair. Immediately, a dozen pirates shoved forward, their eyes gleaming. Not at Bob, but at the gleam of his toolkit. Brass wrenches, polished fittings, rolls of shiny silver tape, and an inspection mirror that flashed sunlight into dazzled eyes. They looked less like plumbing implements and more like bits of buried treasure come to life. One buccaneer, sporting 3 gold earrings in his single ear, whispered, "Cap'n, do you see the golden claw?" He pointed at Bob's pipe wrench, its bronze jaws glinting. "That there's no claw," Bob announced, holding up the wrench. "It's a number 12 jaw grip. Best friend I ever had. Don't pet it." The pirates recoiled in awe, concluding at once that Bob had trained his golden claw to bite treasure thieves. Rumors scurried around the deck. It shot flames. It snapped bones. It was the preserved hand of old King Neptune. Bob, more interested in the hull than myth-making, ignored them. Squeegee flapped to the mainmast and squawked, "Service charge! Service charge!" a phrase that would have sounded threatening anywhere except a sinking ship. Captain Grimchops cleared his throat. "You'll be paid handsomely if she stays afloat. If she sinks, we'll be too wet to count coins, so think on that." "Understood," Bob said, setting down a canvas roll of specialized chisels. The chisels were copper inlay, each one shaped for prying swollen planks apart. They sparkled like gemstones in the sun, and the crew gasped collectively. One pirate actually licked his lips. Bob knelt beside the main hatch and pulled up a water-soaked plank with a practiced wrench of the wrist. A geyser shot straight into his beard. "There's your problem," he announced. "You've got the sea trying to move in rent-free. I'll have to snake behind this bulkhead, keep the path clear." While he worked, the crew worked themselves into a frenzy. They debated the value of Bob's treasures, hypothesizing secret maps etched on the metallic surfaces, invisible currents of magic in the Teflon tape, perhaps even the legendary fountain of youth hidden inside his plumber's torch. Bob, wedged halfway into the wall, could only hear muffled snippets. "See the reflection? That's got to be a diamond blaze. Bet if we pry that spool open, there'll be pearls." Occasionally, Bob felt someone tug at a tool in his belt. He responded by swinging the wrench backward, which produced 2 results. The hull patch tightened nicely, and the nearest pirate leapt away, convinced the golden claw had tried to take his ear. Word spread that the plumber's treasures defended themselves, which excited the crew even more. If treasure could fight back, imagine how valuable it must be. Bob surfaced, dripping. "Captain, I need pitch, oakum, and silence. I can get you the first two myself, but I'd appreciate the last. Grimchops nodded, but the silence request was hopeless. A pirate named Jellyleg Jenkins leaned in to study Bob's blowtorch, which was fancier than most pistols on board. That'd be either a death ray or a royal scepter, Jenkins concluded. Bob pushed past him, chasing the next leak. Down in the oarlop, the water sloshed above ankle height. Bob set to work hammering a patch plate over a split plank. Each hammer strike inadvertently sent a shower of droplets upward, catching the dim lantern light like stardust, which only made the crew stare harder. Fearing the hammer would be stolen if set down, Bob tucked it under his arm while he unrolled epoxy putty. From above, this looked suspiciously like revealing an ancient scroll. A gasp rose on the stairwell. Someone whispered, "He carries scrolls of power!" "Scrolls of putty," Bob corrected, rolling it between calloused hands until the chemicals warmed. The crew heard only power, not putty, and shrank back respectfully. By midday, the waterline had dropped from ankles to calves, modest progress, but noticeable. Bob paused for a celebratory swig from his canteen. Squeegee sang "Clamp It, Patch It, Invoice" to the tune of Drunken Sailor. The crew, noticing the descending water, grew uneasy. If the brigantine didn't sink, they'd never get the chance to salvage Bob's glittering valuables from the ocean floor. Grimchops, concerned for entirely different reasons, captain's pride, personal safety, ordered a barrel of grog open to keep morale up. The grog helped in the sense that everyone stopped hovering directly over Bob, but it fueled new theories. The plumber might be an alchemist, turning seawater into grog. Perhaps his tools converted wooden beams into gold, which the captain intended to keep secret. A mutinous breeze drifted among the men. Bob climbed topside to assess deck seams. The afternoon sun turned his metal fittings into miniature suns. He laid them out like a surgeon, brass sleeve, compression nut, PTFE ribbon. Such orderliness baffled pirates used to dumping booty in sacks. They concluded the pattern itself was a code. A brawny marauder named Slab-Faced Margot groaned. "That's the line to a buried chest, I swear. Look, a triangle means island, the circle be a lagoon. It means shut the valve and hold this fitting," Bob snapped, pressing the nut into Margot's palm. Instinctively, she clamped her fingers around it as though handed an emerald. "Don't drop it," Bob warned. "Worth more than your teeth right now." She nodded, stunned by the importance. He was halfway through tightening a line when the deck lurched. A swirling vortex of rumors had reached its crescendo. Jellyleg Jenkins, tipsy and covetous, marched forward, waving a cutlass. "Hand over the treasure, Bilgy. We've figured it out. You carry riches disguised as ordinary nonsense." "I carry nonsense disguised as nonsense," Bob said, still crouched. "If I don't finish this coupling, the ship will take water faster than your boots can bail." "Stalling tactic," Jenkins hissed. He lunged for the toolbox. Bob pivoted, swinging a spool of sealing tape like a flail. The thin silver ribbon unfurled through the air, wrapping around Jenkins's wrist and sword hilt in one graceful arc. Jenkins yelped, discovering his own weapon taped to his arm. The tape's surprising tensile strength kept Jenkins flapping like a harpooned gull. The crew reacted with worshipful awe. The plumber wielded enchanted bindings. Grimchops intervened, slamming his peg leg to the deck. "Fools! Let the man work!" "But Cap'n," Margot whispered, "he's got coils of moonlight, wrenches of sunbeam, hammers that sing." "He's got a bill too," Grimchops countered. "Let him finish or we'll sink and pay with our lungs." Satisfied, Bob returned to his coupling, grumbling, "I should charge double for combat." The wrench clicked, the seal set, and above them, a telltale whistle of suction ceased. Bob exhaled, happy to hear only the normal creaks of a functional, if still damp, vessel. Below decks, water now lingered only in stray puddles. Bob led a final inspection crawl, sealing hairline cracks with quick-cure resin. The crew followed at a distance, treating each blob of resin like sacred ointment. A pirate, named Pennypincher Pete, dipped a finger in a drying glob, then tasted it. He regretted that instantly. When they reached the bilge, Bob discovered the worst leak yet, a long splintered gash stretching under the ballast. He squatted, calculating materials and time. Need a big patch plate, and muscle, and something heavy to press it while the bolts set. "Treasure chest?" suggested Slab-Faced Margot. "Sure," Bob said. Full weight, mind you. In a fit of irony, the pirates lugged their own plunder ruby-studded boxes, silver ingots, coiled necklaces into service. They piled it atop Bob's steel plate, which he'd fastened with gasket and bolts. The treasure's heft pressed out air bubbles and water seepage perfectly. As he ratcheted the last bolt, he joked, "Congratulations, you've just used gold to save wood. That's luxury construct." Grimchops alone found the humor. The rest worried they'd never see their loot again, now that it was screwed to the hull. Bob scribbled on a parchment, tore it off, and slapped it on the chest. "Do not remove structure." The crew accepted the official tone and backed away. Night fell. Lanterns flickered, playing gold off copper off brass. Bob gathered his tools. The plumbing job was done. The curse of the tides floated level, happier than she'd been in years. Grimchops approached with a leather sack. Payment per agreement, untold riches. He opened the sack to reveal coins, gems, and something suspiciously like a coupon for free laundry. Bob eyed the coins, then looked at his toolkit. Several items were missing. "Where's my basin wrench and my plumber's putty?" The crew froze. One pirate coughed up a roll of Teflon tape from inside his shirt. Another produced the basin wrench, but only after Grimchops glowered. "Sorry, sir," the thief mumbled. "Thought it were a scepter." Bob inspected the wrench. Slightly sticky with rum, but otherwise fine. He returned it to its slot. "Tools ain't treasure," he lectured. "Tools make treasure possible. Difference matters." "Could still polish 'em up nice," Margot muttered, starry-eyed. Grimchops pressed the payment sack into Bob's hands. "Accept our gratitude. And maybe don't mention the bit where my crew tried to mutiny over plumbing parts." "No worries," Bob said, hefting the sack. "Sea's full of odd tales. Yours will fit." Squeezy squawked. "Itemized receipt." Bob obliged, jotting down services rendered. Hull patching, seal replacement, conflict mitigation, and educational lecture on tool vs treasure. He added a small surcharge labeled hazardous idiocy. As Bob prepared to descend to his dinghy, Jellyleg Jenkins shuffled forward, still trailing ribbons of silver tape. "So, Master of Waters, any chance ye sell those bindings?" Bob tore off a fresh strip of tape and slapped it on Jenkins's other wrist. "Take it for free, friend. Just don't call it treasure. Call it a reminder." The dinghy splashed away, Squeegee perched on the toolbox, eyeing the moonlit waves. Bob counted his payment. Respectable coin, even without considering the free grog he'd enjoyed. He chuckled, imagining future stories. Somewhere across the taverns of the Caribbean, pirates would whisper about the mysterious plumber, whose golden claw guarded self-defending trinkets. Bob would let the myth grow, better marketing than any billboard. Halfway to the horizon, Squeegee fluttered and croaked, "Leak alarm! Leak alarm!" "Reflex," Bob assured, patting the bird, but out of habit he glanced over the dinghy's edge. A loose seam leaked a thin thread of water. Bob smiled, reached for his tape, and patched the crack in 2 swift motions. Behind him, on the curse of the tides, pirates probably cheered their survival, unaware that the greatest treasure they'd seen all day was still in the plumber's toolbox. Experience, efficiency, and a little tape that could bind swords to wrists and ships to dreams.